The request came in at 2:41 a.m. The pickup location was odd. Behind a closed daycare center in a quiet corner of Portland, rain was falling. That cold, persistent Oregon drizzle that seeps into your bones. The streetlights cast long, blurry reflections on the wet asphalt, making the world feel like a watercolor painting left out in the storm. I remember thinking, who picks up a ride here at this hour? My Camry's engine hummed, the only sound besides the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of rain on the windshield. Then she appeared, a silhouette emerging from the deep shadows beside the building. As she hurried toward the car, the motion sensor light above the daycare's back door flickered on, illuminating her for just a second. She was young, maybe early 20s, soaked and shivering. Her clothes were stained with mud, as if she'd been kneeling or crawling in the dirt. But it was what she was holding that made the air in the car turn cold. She was clutching a small, white, plastic object wrapped tightly in a hand towel, holding it to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. She slid into the back seat, the door closing with a heavy, final thud. "Please," she whispered, her voice ragged and trembling. "Just go." She didn't give me a destination, just pointed down the dark, empty street. I started driving, the silence in the car growing heavier with each passing block. The only sounds were the wipers slicing through the rain and her own shaky, shallow breaths. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were wide, scanning the darkness behind us, as if expecting something to follow. I kept my own eyes on the road. In this job, you learn not to ask too many questions. You become a ghost. A temporary vessel. You take people from one point in their lives to another, and you don't look back. But this felt different. The tension was a physical presence in the car. After a few minutes of silence, she finally spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. "Can you take me there?" I think he went back. "He who?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She just shook her head, pulling the towel tighter around the object in her hands. That's when I finally recognized it. It was a baby monitor. The receiver part, the kind you keep by your bed. My own kid had one years ago. But this one shouldn't have been on. It was disconnected from its base. It was just a piece of plastic. And then I heard it. A soft, crackling static coming from her hands. At first, I thought it was the radio. Maybe interference from the storm. But I'd turned the radio off. The static grew just a little louder, and underneath it, another sound started to form. A faint, rhythmic noise. It sounded like footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps on a wooden floor. The woman let out a small, choked gasp. She clutched the baby monitor to her ear, her face a mask of pure terror. "He's there," she sobbed. He went back inside. "Please, drive faster. Please." Her panic was contagious. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Who was he? And where was there? The daycare? Why would someone be walking inside a closed daycare at nearly 3 in the morning? This is where I almost turned the car around. Every instinct was screaming at me to stop, to ask her to get out, to call the police. This wasn't a normal fare. This was something else, something dark. But the look in her eyes. It wasn't just fear, it was the desperate plea of a mother. I've seen that look before, so I pushed the accelerator. The city lights began to thin out, replaced by the towering pines of the suburbs. The roads got narrower, winding into the forest. The static from the monitor was constant, now, a low hiss that filled the car. The footsteps were clearer, more distinct. It wasn't just walking anymore. I could hear a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. The woman was rocking back and forth in the back seat, whispering to herself, "Not again, please, not again." "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice firmer this time. She finally looked up, not at me, but at the road ahead, and pointed toward a dark turnoff. "There, down that road, it's the only house." It wasn't a road, it was more like a gravel driveway, swallowed by ferns and shadows. I turned the car, my headlights cutting a narrow path through the pitch-black woods. The rain was heavier here, drumming on the roof like frantic fingers. At the end of the long driveway, a house stood in complete darkness. Not a single light on. It looked empty, abandoned, even. I pulled to a stop. Before I could even put the car in park, she threw the door open and scrambled out into the rain. "Thank you!" she cried out, her voice swallowed by the storm. She started running toward the dark house, her feet slipping in the mud. But as she ran, the baby monitor slipped from her grasp. It fell onto the wet gravel right beside my car door. She didn't stop. She didn't even look back. She just disappeared into the shadows of the porch. I sat there for a long moment, the engine idling, my heart pounding against my ribs. I should have just driven away. I know I should have, but I couldn't. I got out of the car, the cold rain hitting my face. I looked down at the baby monitor lying on the ground, and that's when I saw it. The little green light on the receiver was on, solid and bright. I remembered from my own kid's monitor, that light only turns on when it detects a signal, when you're near the paired device. The camera, the transmitter. But there was no transmitter in my car. The woman was gone. The only things here were me, my car, and this piece of plastic on the ground. The static hissed, and the sound of footsteps echoed from the tiny speaker. They were slow, methodical, and they were getting closer. I stood there, frozen in the rain, staring at that little green light. The monitor was picking up a signal from somewhere nearby, from inside that dark, silent house, or from somewhere else. I suddenly realized that light had been on the entire ride. From the moment she got in the car behind the daycare, the signal was never coming from the house she ran to. It had been with us the whole time. I never saw her again. I didn't wait. I got back in my car and drove, leaving the monitor on the gravel. I didn't look back. Some nights, when the rain is falling, and the streets are empty, I think about her, and I think about that little green light. The receiver only turns on when it's near the camera. She said he went back. But what if he never left? What if the camera wasn't at the daycare at all? What if it was in the bag she left behind? If this stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments. The night is full of stories. Stay safe out there.